Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman, joined by my fellow party members. We have Will Rotondi.
Hey, how's it going?
And Mae Finch.
Hello, hello.
Full disclosure, I have a cat sitting in my lap. You can just make out her tail sticking out there. So if a mic gets unplugged or you hear purring noises, well, that's why. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about Will's Christmas movie pick, Die Hard. We'll play a little bit of a game at the end that is Christmas related. And of course, we will be drawing a side quest. But first, we wanted to congratulate Michelle Yeoh, the star of, I think, one of our favorite movies of this year, Everything Everywhere All at Once, for being named an icon by Time Magazine. So congratulations, Michelle Yeoh. Well deserved. Everyone, I think prior to Everything Everywhere All at Once talked about her acting or her martial arts skills, not so much her acting. And I think in that film in particular, she's proved that she can do both excellently. So well deserved. Besides that one, does anybody have like a favorite film of hers? Or like performance on a TV show? Because my nomination would be her as both the benign mentor to I'm blanking on the character name, but is it Michael in Star Trek Discovery? And then playing the evil mirror version. She does an awesome job with both of those iterations of that character. So that's my pick. How about you, Will? Do you have a favorite Michelle Yeoh performance?
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek Discovery is a great suggestion there, Chris, to put out for people that might be looking to get back into the franchise that might have taken a break for a while. I know Star Trek Discovery was kind of that when it first came out. There was a little bit of pushback on that, but I definitely recommend that series. And yeah, Michelle Yeoh is awesome in it. I'm gonna have to go with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I think that's it's a beautiful film. Yeah, it's gorgeous. And definitely recommend it for people that enjoy sort of the martial arts style. Just the visuals alone are amazing, but just the entire film and the storyline, I don't know how else to describe it except beautiful. So I would definitely recommend it.
My parents, who try to be open-minded, but sometimes run into like art movies and are a little baffled. The way that I got it to click for them, because they were having a hard time at first, was like, think of this like a Tall Tale, but just from a different country, and where like there's like it's slightly grounded, but there like logic is also going to go out the window at certain points, and that analogy made it click for them. So that was good. How about you, Mae? You got a favorite Michelle Yeoh role outside?
You guys picked my top three, so
that's okay.
Yeah,
you can double up.
Taken. But I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because I think that was like her big comeback, and like you said, it was like her first time in like a fully fleshed out lead role, really. And that was really cool to see. Ellie is also piping up to say that it was her favorite as well.
Well, very solid picks, and again, well deserved. Bright horizon for Michelle Yeoh with I think the biggest profile project that is getting a lot of buzz right now is the Witcher spinoff. Is it called Blood Origin? I think.
Yes. Very excited.
Me too. I'll confess that I bounced off of the Witcher TV show after season 2, just being such a fan of the video games, probably first and foremost, and then the books. Something about it just didn't quite click for me. So I'll be excited to see what they do kind of away from Geralt and the main story. And I think it's a very cool world to play around in. So
if it's any reassurance, I think Henry Cavill agrees with you.
Oh,
yeah. Famously not happy with the direction. Also a fan of the video games and the source material, and was allegedly frustrated with the direction. So I'm in good company, I suppose. If it's good enough for Mr. Cavill or not good enough for Mr. Cavill, then it's not good enough for me. That's what I say. Well, all right. Let's have us a side quest, shall we? And let's see what we get. It is an immersive experience. So, as a little recap for our listeners, or maybe this is your first episode, if you had to live the rest of your life as a character in a movie you've seen, who would you pick and why?
I think if I had to choose a character to be, maybe not necessarily a specific character, but like if I could inhabit a world in a film, I am 90% positive that I would be a hobbit. And
Nice.
I say that because I would just eat, drink, and smoke all day long. And I would find that to be like the most relaxing experience. Just knowing my personality and general disposition, I feel like I would be a hobbit. I would get my ass kicked when the forces of Mordor decided to descend upon my lovely little hobbit hole. But I think that would be a very relaxing experience. I'd have
I
to go
feel
with
like
that.
didn't I actually pick that for the same category? Like,
I
come to
think
think
you
of it.
did.
Yeah.
But that's great. That means that we're synergized. So I'm
Yeah, I
not going to
think
ask you to come up with another one because I feel like that just shows
what
that this podcast is meant to be as far as the fellowship goes. So
I mean, I would be Gandalf because same thing, same lifestyle, but cool wizard
Yeah,
powers. So
it's true.
and
All right, you know what?
Gandalf gets out a little bit more. He gets to see the
yeah,
wide world where hobbits are traditionally a little more like reclusive and
Mhm.
isolation ist. Gandalf's all about like hitting the road, which is cool.
Mhm.
but also is clearly envious of the hobbits and their lifestyle. I feel like he tries to be an honorary hobbit.
Mhm.
I won't spoil how or like what, but the Rings of Power show, which I have not finished, kind of alludes to like why like some of the wizards might view like hobbits like so positively from early on, which is very cool. So that's all I'll say.
Interesting.
I'm not gonna get into specifics, but there's a very neat explanation. But sorry to digress there. But
No, it's okay. And you know what? If we need a secondary option, I can throw one more item out there.
Okay,
And it's going to
well.
sound really morbid, honestly, but
Oh god.
Okay.
I would
you
be a
gonna say
space
Mad
marine.
God?
I would be like a space marine in the Aliens
gee.
universe. I know I would die, and it would probably be horrible. But I think that having the camaraderie, there's something about watching Aliens where I just love it for like, I mean, just the banter and the camaraderie that those guys have is just, I don't know, it's what makes the film, in my opinion. I really enjoy watching these dudes like try to fight this force that they're never gonna defeat. So
It's
I don't
guys
know.
and
I
ladies
hopefully
too, which is cool because like it's a very progressive view of the military where arguably the most badass character in that movie, besides Ripley, is also a woman, which is Vasquez. Like she is
hell yeah.
one of my favorites. Like, but yeah, it is a interesting look at I don't know, future like military. Like it is on the one hand very macho like culture, but as you said, there's a lot of like trust and stuff that they show that is kind of cool. And I mean, dude, their equipment compared to like the ship or the stuff that we have like contemporary is so much cooler. The drop ships, the APC, all that, the smart gun, my god. So
like that's
I like that.
90% of the reason why I got into Aliens Fireteam Elite so hard was like, this is my chance.
To
I
play with
can
all the
live in this
toys.
world.
I love that, Will.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun.
And
I don't know why.
fairness,
Again, it's morbid. It's very morbid because the life expectancy is pretty much non-existent, but still.
just for that one species, like you get the impression that like this is the first time that they've been on their back foot. Like the overconfidence that all of them show kind of shows me that like they are used to being the superior force. So your odds are pretty good that you'll land somewhere with not xenomorphs and you'd probably be fine.
Nice.
Let's transition to Die Hard, a movie that I thought Mae Finch was calling rad, and then I read her message in our group chat and realized she was saying red because there was something wrong with the particular like platform she was watching it on. And
It was really
anyway.
funny because it was YouTube, which the YouTube channel color is red. And
Mhm.
it's like they just put a red filter over the whole movie. It was
Subliminal
really
marketing. I'll have to see if I can like upload like the screenshot. I'll shrink it down so it's just your TV in case you don't want your
Thanks. Yeah,
apartment
please don't dox me.
Yeah, no. But I feel like the audience should see it. Everybody looks sunburned, like really bad. But did you think it was rad? Is going to be the question I hope to answer today. But Will, since this was your pick, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away, buddy.
Sweet. Yeah, so Die Hard, man, classic Christmas film, or not, depending on who you ask. Was a 1988 film directed by John McTiernan, which starred Bruce Willis. I'm blanking on names, so please hold. Bruce Willis, Alan Rickman, obviously as the villain, the late Alan Rickman, Bonnie Bedelia, Reginald VelJohnson, and Paul Gleason, among a few others. And I guess in a nutshell, it's about a New York cop who's flying out to LA to see his daughter and his wife. His wife works at the Nakatomi Tower, which is where there's a Christmas party that's going on. He meets up with her. Some terrorists crash the party, take over the building, and mayhem ensues after that while John McClane's trying to figure out what the terrorists are up to, trying to stop them, while also subsequently dealing with some questionable motives or moves by the local police department and the FBI. His only real source of backup in the film is Alan, who's played by Reginald VelJohnson, who people from my age group will hopefully remember fondly as Carl Winslow from Family Matters. But he's the first cop to arrive on the scene and is basically moral support for McClane while he's trying to figure out what's going on, and they're talking over two-way radios. By the end of it, we see McClane save his wife, almost all the hostages, minus Ellis, who we could talk about if we want to, as one of the sleaziest dudes, I feel like, in any 80s or 90s action film, and basically beats the shit out of a bunch of crooks that are there. So with that in mind, let's head on over to first impressions. And Bay, since we've already talked about your interesting viewing experience, I'd like to hear what you thought once you finally got it in the right filter, and just as with the film overall.
Yeah, shout out to Voodoo for not having really weird color grading, because that's where I finished it on. And I was surprised. I thought that like I'd not like the movie because I felt like my impression of it was that it was like very old-fashioned and tropey. And then I saw it and I was like, wait, no, I love this. This is charming. This is great. So I'm a fan. I'm a diehard fan now. I was talking with my partner earlier, kind of confused because I still don't know why it's called Die Hard. But everything else I loved. Still confused on the title, but I like Die Hard. And according to our poll we ran on Twitter yesterday, it is unanimously a Christmas movie. So great pick, Will.
Nailing it. Yeah.
If you like the title, you'll love the sequel title, Die Hard 2, Die Harder. And then the second sequel title is Die Hard with a Vengeance. And then I think it's Live Free or Die Hard, or maybe A Good Day to Die Hard. But those are the next two in some order.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're a diehard fan of something, then like you're a serious fan. But that doesn't make sense in the context of this movie.
I have a suspicion it's just the fact that a lot of dudes get killed. And maybe for that time frame, that was enough for the title to work. Or they're just like,
or maybe it's hard
clean
to kill him, like he dies hard.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
also that. Yeah.
Sorry, English major here, and I'm showing it.
It's a pretty 80s title. I think we can all agree on.
What was your opinion, Chris?
Well, I mean, this is like, unequivocally one of my favorite action movies, Christmas movies. I watch it nearly every year. I think this is like just a high watermark for the action genre in general. I think taking place in one night in a space that you seem to get really familiar with by the end. Like maybe I've seen this movie too many times, but I feel like I could navigate that building, like just from watching this movie. Like you kind of figure out like where people are in relation to, like they do cool things with like elevators passing by and things like that, where you get a really good sense of the space. And I think that's a huge plus. Just a amazing, not really, probably not his first movie, but his first big movie, like for both Alan Rickman and Bruce Willis, but Alan Rickman in particular, like I don't care if his accent's kind of shite, like he's just amazing in it, like and it makes me miss him every time I see this movie, frankly, because he's so good in it. But Bruce Willis too, I think, does a great job. There's some standout sequences that I think take people by surprise. The sort of apology through Powell to his wife in case he doesn't make it, I thought is really well done. It's a well acted scene, and it hits home. I've said her I love you 1,000 times, but I never said I'm sorry. I was just, it's good stuff. Good stuff. But of course, we show up first and foremost for the action, and it's just top notch in this. Well paced all throughout. My only gripe, lifelong gripe, mind you, not just watching this most recent time, is that I feel like, well, I understand why they do the sort of resurrection off the stretcher with what's his name? Carl, I think.
Carl, yeah.
It gives Powell that like redemption moment. It always to me just feels really out of left field. I'm not a fan of it. Though that's just a personal opinion. Outside of that, I think this is just about as perfect an action movie as you can get. So big fan.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I loved the bromance between Powell and McClane.
Yes.
Yep, which shows back up again for a little bit in Die Hard 2.
But yeah, which is a pretty passable sequel. Would you agree, Will?
Oh, I love Die Hard 2. I know a lot of people aren't. Not everybody is a fan of it, but I actually really liked it. And I think it felt very much in keeping with the first one, sort of just in terms of tone and action and ridiculousness. So, yeah.
Before we hear Will's impressions, I want to ask, so Die Hard 2 or Die Hard with a Vengeance? Do you have a preference on sequel? Because while I think Die Hard 2 is maybe arguably the better movie, I always have more fun with Die Hard with a Vengeance because you take that bromance, but you put them in person, and it's Samuel L. Jackson, and I feel like their chemistry is phenomenal in that movie. But
I agree, hands down, with the chemistry between those two is excellent. I think that it's hard for me because on the one hand, there's things I don't like about the third one, but I don't know, it's hard. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to like spoil anything.
Yeah.
May, obviously, for you watching them for the first time, and then also for our viewers, so without any like plot details, I would say I think they're both equally good for different reasons. I think that's pretty much in terms of like the saga that it has become now. That's probably like those three, that trilogy worked really well. And then afterwards, when they've tried to add stuff on, it's sort of gone downhill from there. I think Live Free or Die Hard was actually better than most people remember it.
Is that the fourth?
Yeah, that's the fourth one. I think that actually does a decent job of trying to like continue the storyline without being, I mean, it's got some over the top stuff, and it's got some stuff that I would have cut and then kept in, but that's pretty much for me. The fourth one's where I would say it ends. The fifth one just like gets completely bonkers, and I'm like, no, I can't suspend disbelief anymore for you. But you know what? That's like most franchises, man. You try to milk it as much as you can, and then when you're like, okay, this is not going to work anymore, then you cut your losses. So, but yeah.
Right on. So, what do you think of Die Hard, the original, Will?
I love Die Hard.
Really?
I think I have like an unhealthy, I don't know, maybe it's up there with Aliens. Maybe if I had to live in a world, I would go live in Die Hard. I don't know. I mean, they had 79-cent gas that I saw at the beginning of the film, which was pretty awesome for that.
In California, no less.
I know. We were just like, damn, it must have been cheap, but that's all relative, I guess. But I love it for the fact that it tries to balance being silly and over the top with actually trying to ground their characters. It's not just like an action fest in the sense of like a Schwarzenegger film. You've got a little bit more depth to John McClane. He's vulnerable. He's not, like the superhero that can go around and just beat the crap out of everybody and his hair stays perfect. He's not Tom Cruise for Mission Impossible 2, basically. He can get hurt. I mean, the man is like walking across glass and bare feet, and then, you know, dealing with the pain of that and dealing with getting beat up and scratched and shot, like nicked a couple of times. And so, yeah, I think that he's like he's a relatable hero, and that he's forced into this extraordinary circumstance. And he's literally talking to himself, trying to figure out how to get it done. Like, he's arguing with himself. And that's part of like the humor, but also like the humanizing of it, where you're like, yeah, like, what would you do if you had to deal with this? And how would you react? And again, some of it's so over the top, it's laughable, but that's part of the charm, I think, of Die Hard, is that it's silly but and irreverent, and it doesn't take itself too seriously in some parts, and then it just tries to go like all in on being like this action heist, you know, adventure. And yeah, so overall, I just think that for what it was, and as complicated of an actual like production, if you ever read about or watch information, like watch like there's a Netflix show that talks about the movies that made us, and if you go back and you watch some of this stuff about like what it was like to actually make the film, it was almost a train wreck. But it's one of those situations where it's like all the factors just kind of came together and worked out, and you got a product that surprised even the people at the time, because Bruce Willis wasn't really an action star. He was like known for comedy and being on like a romantic sitcom. And so they were like, you're banking on this guy to sell this action flick. So that, to me, I always thought was impressive, that for a movie by today's standards that we would think is just kind of like maybe in some respects a run-of-the-mill action flick, it's like, you know, back then, like, this was really surprising in a lot of ways. So I mean, kudos to him, and kudos to the production for being able to pull that off. And also, I have to shout out to my friend Walter Johnson for getting me this pretty awesome t-shirt for Die Hard. Let me see if I can pan down and it'll actually work. So now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho.
That's great.
That's iconic.
Yeah, but yeah, man, so definitely. And it's like a yearly Christmas thing for me to watch this film. I love it. So
did you buy the Christmas countdown thing that, I don't know if you saw on the internet? It was certainly advertised a lot for me, probably because of my, you know, like love for this movie. And I'm sure like somewhere out in the advertisement databases they've got my number, but it's like Hans Gruber falling off the building, and like it's the countdown. Yeah,
the advent calendar.
Did you
every
purchase
day
that?
a little bit closer.
That's amazing.
I need to. It'd be like a gag gift you put up on like your wish list that somebody will buy for you.
My favorite thing about that scene, I think they cover it in the movies that made us, but is that shot of him falling. The reason his face looks so genuinely terrified and surprised is they didn't tell Alan Rickman that they were going to drop him off the stunt rig. So like he is actually like really shocked and kind of scared as he's falling down, because, you know, they were like, all right, we'll let you know when we're let you go, and they did it. And then of course, like, they just slowed it down. So every time I see that scene now, I think about the real shot of him.
That's
being
crazy.
like, oh shit, it works really well.
The times,
and that wasn't a stunt double.
Like, no,
I mean, so they didn't drop him off a building. So he is on a soundstage,
Right,
hooked up to a rig, like against like a probably at the time blue screen, I would guess. And he had sort of like a harness with like a bungee, and like it would release, and he actually fell like a pretty good distance for the stunt, and then I think landed on some padding, or maybe like the bungee like caught him, but it was a pretty good height still. And no, it's not a stunt double, and he was not expecting the release at the time that it came, and it yielded, I think, one of the best shots in the movie, personally.
New respect for Alan Rickman.
Yeah, it also like chalk it up for like another moment where directors don't tell their actors what they're gonna do to like get a real response out of them. Not as bad as like slapping a priest, I guess, but you know.
No, I don't think it quite tops that.
Oh, awesome. Well, I guess the first question, this was mostly just my plan to sit back and have a very easygoing conversation about our Christmas films. But for Die Hard, I'd just like to get some of your feedback regarding, I guess, the main two guys, man. We've got like the protagonist and the antagonist. So I was interested to learn first about what you thought in terms of John McClane as a action hero or just as a hero, and then go to good old Hans Gruber there. But we've talked a little bit already about both, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about your thoughts. So Chris, I'll pass it back over to you first, man.
My first thought is that this has maybe some of the best continuity of a tank top in a movie ever. Like how it starts off pristine and white, and then like gets a little dirty and a little dirtier, and then by the end it's filthy. So if we were going to do best continuity for a clothing item, this would win probably like greatest of all time. No, but John McClane is fantastic. As you kind of already said, the vulnerability, I think, is what makes him work. Makes it a little easier to root for him. So in other words, like he's not just like John Rambo, who is alluded to in the movie, in complete control, like hiding out. It seems like luck plays a pretty big factor in some of the scenes. I think his resourcefulness is probably my favorite part about his character. Just that he seems to be able to kind of work with what he's got, and he is way less afraid of heights than I am. I'll put it that way. I would have been toast so many times in this movie from some of the stuff that he does. But yeah, I like his dynamic with the various characters. Of course, like him and Hans together, fabulous. But also some of the scenes with his wife Holly and Al Powell, like all really, really good stuff. I think it just shows the range and allegedly why he got the lead role in 12 Monkeys, I guess, was some of those like standout scenes. Terry Gilliam thought he had the chops to do something a little more serious. So as far as Alan Rickman goes, he's just delicious, isn't he? I mean, the little quips like John Phelps in London or whatever he says, like I hear Yasser Arafat buys his there too, like little bit of a dated reference probably for some viewers, but just he kind of presents himself as like, oh, I don't want to hurt anybody, and then of course by the end of the film you realize that like the plan is to like kill all the hostages, right? So it's just more about exercising control than anything else. And I think one of the coolest like twists is that he's not in fact a political terrorist who is trying to do anything like noble in his eyes. Like he is just, as Holly calls him, a common thief. An exceptional thief if you ask him, but which is cool, it to kind of boil it down to something so simple. Sometimes it's like an Occam's razor thing, like the simplest explanation is the best. I just as I said earlier, every time I see this movie, miss Alan Rickman terribly, because I think he is just like one of the best actors of his generation, and he could do comedy well, he can do menacing well, and he had just such range, and I can see why he went on to have a bright career after this, because I think it's a standout performance from him.
I second everything Chris has said. I think with Alan Rickman, he does a very good job of coming off as like the extremely narcissistic criminal that like is definitely smart, but like has an air of intelligence above what he actually has. And I feel like he brings a lot of nuance to a role that doesn't like necessarily need it, but it's cool that he did that. And I also just love how like terrible the fake accent he puts on is.
Do you think his American accent is more convincing than his German accent?
I think they're both terrible, but the American one is particularly appalling just because like I can, as an American, I can tell exactly how terrible it is. And I love the moment when John McClane is like, I'm not a dumbass, I knew it was you. So that was great. Like Chris said, they have great chemistry. And yeah, I think Bruce Willis does a good John McClane. I don't want to like sound rude when I say this, but I do like that for your action hero and for the lady in distress. Both Bruce Willis and Bonnie Bedelia are like good looking people, but not like supermodel hot, right? Like they're just conventionally looking people, and I kind of appreciate that they didn't have to look like supermodels.
Agree.
That's a valid point. Yeah.
So yeah, great casting in my opinion.
props to her perm too. I know it's not that anymore, but for the time, I'm sure it was quite impressive.
It's a commitment.
It is a commitment.
Yeah, I think pretty much the thoughts that I would have had about McClane have already been mentioned. But yeah, for Hans, man, I mean, talk about a villain that stays with you, like somebody that you don't forget about. It was very memorable. Alan Rickman, just in and of himself, is like an amazing actor. Was an amazing actor. Sadly, passed away relatively recently. But yeah, I mean, it was. I think it's hard enough trying to find somebody who can fill the shoes of a good protagonist, but to also have somebody that he goes against where it's not just kind of like a run-of-the-mill bad guy. There's actually some character to it, or some likability to some extent. Like, you like the character as the villain for the sake of the story. And so, yeah, 100% would have to say that they nailed it getting these guys to fill these roles. And then I guess in some respects too, we have to think about like supporting characters, and for better or worse, like the sleazy characters and the moral compass characters. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about what we think about, I don't know, Ellis for when he shows up for all of, I don't know, maybe about 20 minutes of the film. And then of course Al Powell, we've touched on a little bit, but maybe a little bit more of your thoughts regarding those two. We could even throw in was it the deputy sergeant or the deputy? I can't remember his rank, but basically the guy from Breakfast Club who shows up and wants to call the shots, and then has
the principal.
Some pretty decent, like one-liners there. Like when they need some more FBI guys. Like there's some moments where he's got a pretty good line or two in there, aside from being kind of an asshole to Al for most of it. But yeah.
Him and that reporter, they always played those roles. The guy that was
that's true,
the brunt of like all the jokes and Ghostbusters in the second half, you know what I mean? The guy that was the environmental specialist. Like, both of them I feel like were always cast as like the assholes, but to good effect. But yeah, anyway, I do want to give a quick shout out. Well, not really a shout out, but like, so we just lost Clarence Gilliard, who plays Theo, the tech specialist, like a couple of weeks ago. He just passed away. He was also Sundown in the original Top Gun and had like a pretty long career doing a lot of good stuff. So that was kind of sad to see. I know we had a lot this year in memoriam, but I did want to give a shout out because Theo's great. Like,
he is.
I love how like, he is not your typical geek in that like he's like shies away from the violence or anything. Like, he's betting on if Mr. Takagi is going to give up the code or not, and he's completely unbothered by it. And obviously, like, he's taking great joy in watching the police get their asses kicked. And I just love that character. And of course, we see Argyle throw a nice little right cross there after crashing into him, which is just a cool moment. I think this movie's just filled with great like characters. So it's not really a wasted like side characters, in my opinion, which also makes it work really well. Like, they're very memorable, most of them.
Yeah, like a lot of other people have their moment.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, you're like, okay, so here's this Argyle, this limo driver. Oh, this is just for exposition, right? So we can learn that John's separated from his wife, and this is where it's at, blah 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 blah. And it's like, no, like he's got a through line, like, in the movie that goes all the way to the end, and I totally respect that. I think that's cool, and even gets to have a hero moment. And there's a lot of characters like that. I do want to talk about Ellis before we get too far away from the side characters. Hans, Booby, I'm your white knight. That guy is such a fucking douchebag. Oh my god.
I mean, he nails the sales talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of my inspiration for the sci-fi novel that'll probably never come out that I've been working on since college is his putting it into my terms, and then it's all this violent language that is like, overlaps in the corporate world. So that was kind of the genesis of an idea that I've been kicking around for a while, but it does work very well, like in that, like, he sort of understands what the guys want. And I think he's coming from both a selfish place and a good place, in that he's trying to like do what he can to help. Maybe he's, also wanting to save his own ass, but that whole sequence is, he's completely unaware of the danger that he's in. He's drinking his Coke and grinning and giving little thumbs up and stuff. And poor Bruce Willis is alarmed to like that entire scene in a way that Ellis should be, but isn't.
Yeah, he's definitely a bit of a snake, but I will say, to his credit, he does not let slip that McLean is the husband of Holly, because he at least has the awareness that that would be a very bad thing to say.
And I love John's like, what have you told them? You could tell.
Yeah. So I'll say that little thing to his credit. Otherwise, like, it was hard to be sad when he got shot.
I love the little, like, he almost like mumbles it, but like, all right, like whispers it to him when he walks by him. He's like, you missed a spot, because he's got Coke all over his nose. John says it to, and Mr. Takagi's like, Holly's policeman. It is really emphasizes it, like, bro, you got to be cool. There's a fucking cop in the building. Like, are we supposed to? What do you think we're supposed to glean that maybe they've there's like some sort of like casual relationship with Holly, or is it more he's been pursuing it and she's like, nah? 'Cause she kind of seems to rebuff him, like when he's like trying to suggest Christmas plans and things like that.
I definitely read that as just your straightforward workplace harassment, not a thing.
He seems to think there's something there for sure.
Yeah, I don't think so. And like she does like tip it over when she thinks that he's not coming for Christmas, but she has kept a photo of him in her office all that time, and does rebuff him. So I don't know. I trust Holly. I also do love she gets this moment of like standing up for all the prisoners and giving like some very reasonable demands to Hans.
Yeah, get a couch nice. to the pregnant lady. Let them use the facilities. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. I like Holly as a character too. She gets a little bit more to do in Die Hard 2 as well, which is nice. Very satisfying to see her punch the reporter who has been harassing her kids and threatening to call INS on their which is like the version of ICE, back in the day, like immigration services, like on the maid. Like, that guy's just a total scumbag. I'd probably punch somebody if they were trying to get some viewership up by having some kids cry on TV and they were my kids. I'd probably be very angry, especially
if they're the reason you got like hostage too, because that's the only reason that Hans found out that she was married to McLean.
I will say they take that plot point and they do interesting things with it in Die Hard 2. There's a further payoff to that, which is great. I won't say anything. I think it's also set around Christmas, right, Will? That's one worth watching.
Yep.
Just for if you're like wanting to keep with the Christmas action spirit, it's pretty solid. But yeah, what other side characters? I'm trying to think. You've got Carl the Heavy, right? So we should talk about him eventually. Oh, Al Powell. Like, let's talk about Al Powell, because on the one hand, I love Al Powell, but also like I'm like, in this day and age, if you shot a kid for having a toy gun, like, I feel like you'd probably be fired. Like he's
you say this, but
you have more faith in our justice system than I do.
Well, that's what I said. Like, in this day and age, like, maybe not then, but it's
I don't know, Chris.
A child with a ray gun. I was like, oh boy, like, well, that sucks. It does make him a sympathetic character, but I always kind of like, it does my head in a little bit where I'm like, ooh, that would be fucked up, like, mistake to make. And I think having the child on the way and then sort of the setup for that character is a lot of fun, where he's sort of had the wind taken out of his sails and now he's put back in this position to like do some good. I love his attitude too, like Al Powell, like, no sir, you couldn't drag me away. Great.
He's so
Yeah.
sincere, and I love that. I don't know how I feel about his redemption arc necessarily, but I do like the kind of kindling bromance, as I mentioned, between him and McLean, and the fact that they both just get like very emotionally honest with each other very fast. And
You
they're
would,
kind
right?
of a
If it's maybe the
lifeline
last
there,
person you talk to. Yeah.
right?
Like, he
I thought
also
that was
knows all the
cool.
ingredients in a Twinkie, which is impressive. Like,
Yeah, the fat jokes weren't great, but 80s.
yeah. I just like that, like he could name, like rattle off all these like super
Ollie
artificial.
sorbet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus. Um,
I do have to actually fact check myself. I think I definitely said that Reginald VelJohnson was Carl Weathers in Family Matters, and Carl Weathers is actually an actor. So
yeah, he's
I apologize. It was Carl
Carl
Winslow. Just
Winslow.
to fact check my own.
My brain filtered it like into the correct name, so don't feel too bad.
Nice.
Like,
To our listeners who think I
yeah.
don't really know what I'm talking about.
I say to our listeners, we said in episode 0 that like we're gonna make mistakes. So
I know I have made many at least. So we should have a mistake counter at the end of the year.
oh gosh. Yeah, I told you I was listening to last week's episode and I was like, yeah, she was attended to permit instead of permitted to attend. And I was like, what? Oh my god, it's the worst. But
I've done that before with sayings.
yeah.
Shout out to Carl Weathers though for being a badass in Predator. I don't know. I'm just gonna shoehorn that in somehow.
There you go.
Love that guy. And also Mandalorian for you Star Wars folks out there too. But anyway, all right, slightly redeemed. But yeah, I love Al. I love him because of the fact that I don't know, it's like they're both trying to like deal in situations where they both feel trapped, and for a couple of guys that are just working through that at the same time. I mean, he was basically the voice of reason that McLean needed to hear to get through everything when he was at his worst. I mean, that scene where all the glass gets shot out and John has to run across it, and then you see him just bleeding all over the place in the bathroom, pulling shards out of his feet. I'm like, that to me is probably the most cringe. All right, so if we're gonna talk about cringy in the sense of like I watched something and it just like repulsed me slightly, that to me gets me every time. That and like dude man who gets his kneecap shot out is like,
Yeah.
that's probably like the height of like the blood fest in this film for that time frame, and so, or for the time in which it was made, because I know that most, I would say, and maybe even we can throw Predator in on this too as sort of a segue. It's like violence in certain films around that time period, depending on how realistic it looked, may or may not have like had much of a reaction. But that to
RoboCop
me,
would like a word with you, sir.
oh my gosh, dude, I don't watch that movie. Oh, the beginning where he gets blown apart. No way. Oh man.
I love RoboCop is, I think, perhaps my favorite 80s action movie like ever because of the political satire in it. I think is just, but it is incredibly violent. And the only version that exists now is like the one that was originally given an NC-17 by the ratings board. Which actually I think works better because the violence gets to a point of like absurdity where it's like you can't really take it serious. My favorite line is like a guy is shot probably 100 times by that big mech, and then somebody's like, will somebody call an ambulance? And it's like, I mean, I don't know how much good it's gonna do, but anyway, I think that one might take the cake though for violence. I mean, this one, don't get me wrong, has like some crazy moments, and I do think the glass in the feet, while not particularly like gratuitous, is certainly the one that always like makes me like wince, because I've stepped on a shard of glass before and it's the fucking worst. So I can't imagine just shredding the bottom of your feet.
I mean, I stepped on a Lego and that shit hurt. So like, come on, man.
And you know what? They commit to it too. Like, he is limping around the rest of that movie. So again, talking about continuity, like they don't make him like pull it out of his feet, like wince a little bit, and then he's just like, all right, like I'm in like perfect fighting condition. Like he's hobbling around the rest of the movie, which, you know, respect to him for that.
He's getting worn down.
Yeah.
Oh, but like even so, like you were talking about heights too, like the scene where he jumps off the side of the building and he has to like kick his way back in, and his feet are still bloody and smearing blood on the glass while he's kicking. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, you so absolutely 100%. The continuity in this film is stellar for trying to make it all look and feel like he is still going through that. And very much to your point, like he gets injured and he continues to react that way. I think one of the downsides to future Die Hard movies, at least the last one, is the one that I remember talking about as like a side quest thing with you guys, where it's like he's become a superhero and he's just, I mean, he might get scratched a little bit, but he doesn't get like stuff happens and he just walks it off like it's nothing. And so I think that for me, this first one felt more realistic to like an actual somebody who is very grounded as a real person that has to deal with this, and how would they get through it. And also like by the end of it, man, he's just like covered in blood. I don't know how much blood is his and how much is the people that he shot around him, but he's just like covered in blood and sweat and just grimy. And
I know,
Holly's
I know they did it for the plot, but he got into a limo, not an ambulance. Why?
That's true. Yeah,
You need stitches, man.
He needs medical attention.
No, he's like it's Christmas Eve. I got my wife back. I need coitus. That's what I need. That's what he's all about.
You need
man.
a shower, John, is what you need.
Probably true, also, but yeah.
Oh.
They did a Mythbusters about that scene where he jumps off with the fire hose, and I'm pretty sure it either like bifurcated the dummy, like the or like it like like died from some sort of other trauma. But they had like, I forget what they always called their dummy. There was a name for it, but like they had a whole episode around that. So there is some like
was it Buster? I think it was Buster.
I think you're right. I think it is Buster. So there's still some suspension of disbelief, but I feel like it never gets to the point of like no way. It's more like okay, like I could buy it well enough, in the context of it. So
you don't think he just I was gonna say like getting ripped apart by what was it, the fire hose, I don't know, container, for lack of a better word, whatever it was wrapped when it fell down. You're saying that Buster got
I think when they dropped the dummy from the height, like with the fire hose and like
he got
the demonstration, it was like it was dead. Definitely the person was dead. Like it was like you wouldn't survive that maneuver. But again, that's not why we come to action movies, right? Is to pick it apart. But I do think it's fun that they did like a that segment. It might have been like in an action movie like episode or something, but I digress.
That's awesome. I'm totally gonna have to look that up now because I'm really fascinated by his like. So he just would have like his spine or something, or he just would have like.
Yeah, I forget exactly. It's been like a decade since I've seen it, but yeah.
We'll find the clip and send it to you, Will.
I was gonna say I'm looking. Yeah, I'm
put it in
back.
here maybe. Right there.
Well, my next question for you guys is, and I guess a little bit to Mae's. Off of Mae's question from the beginning about the purpose for the title of this film is, who do you think dies the hardest?
Oh gosh.
Or perhaps the most intricately, like of all the deaths, of all the ways you could go out in this film, which one do you think was the best? And Mae, I'll throw it over to you first, since you've already been grappling with this question slightly.
Yeah, that's hard because I don't remember all of the like henchmen's names, but I would have to say just like the first guy to die, just because one, like you're in this crazy action film and you die falling downstairs. Like the most pedestrian way to go. But then your body is used for intimidation, which is pretty hardcore. So I'm gonna go with that guy.
Nice. How about you, Chris?
I mean, my fear of heights, like Hans Gruber probably takes the cake there, because that's like, well, fear of heights, or like fear of dying from like a fall, is only surpassed by drowning for me, like, or like asphyxiation. So that's probably it. I'm trying to think if there's any like thing particularly like slasher-esque or like crazy in this. I don't think that most of it's gun deaths or like snap necks and stuff like that, right? For this one, explosions.
Yeah, so I definitely agree. Hans Gruber, like hands down, that the way to go. And even sort of like the shot afterwards where you see whatever the stunt guy or the dummy or whatever they used as he's falling. I mean, it looks realistic enough to me, man. I mean, that's so that I definitely think that was I guess it was, I'm trying to think about the best way to explain that. It's like a death worthy of the villain that you want. Like, you want a really good villain, but you also want to see them get taken out in a really effective way. And so, yeah, that seemed to work well. And the fact that they tied back in just interesting little bits and pieces throughout the film to try and get closure to, like Holly's watch that Hans is holding on to right before he falls. Like, that's a plot point. It's a random plot point that Ellis points out at the beginning, and then it comes back around to be something at the very end. So I thought that was really cool. I think for me, on the one hand, I talked about guy who got kneecapped, and I think that in terms of like blood spectacle, that's probably the best one for me in terms of where the dude went out in the film. But I also like how the fight scene between Carl and McClane, and just McClane's little like grunting, yelling one-liners about what was it? He's like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna cook you, and I'm gonna eat you. It's just like random weird stuff that only Bruce Willis can say, and it comes off as funny. And so, yeah, I think that having that happen, even though technically Carl didn't die, Carl comes back for round 2, and dies harder when he gets shot by Al. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's the fact that he survived for a hot minute, came back, wanted to be like the boss level, villain, and then gets, one shot, one kill by.
It does seem like the hardest death.
He's the hardest one to kill. It's his anger that fuels him over the death of his brother. So, and also
Who looks
just
like Evan Peters playing Jeffrey Dahmer, by the way, that guy.
Oh, nice. I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
I got to give credit to Marianne. She was like, who's this Evan Peters Dahmer looking motherfucker? I was like, that is definitely what he looks like. Yep.
Amazing.
Do a side by side.
Yes, please do. Well, I think that's all the questions that I've got for you guys. Unless there's any other thoughts you'd like to add, I will say, for those listeners who have never seen it before, if you want a nice little YouTube treat, you should definitely check out the Die Hard song, courtesy of Guyz Nite. If you just YouTube that, you will find a nice little rendition, nice little rock song that goes through all 3 movies, and even tacked on a 4th verse for the Live Free or Die Hard. So thankfully not A Good Day to Die Hard. I think we all came to the conclusion the series was over at that point. But but yeah, you should do it. If you've been listening to us talk about Mission Impossible 2 and our little joke about Ben Stiller riffing his little Tom Cruise gag where he pretended to be Tom Cruise and look like him while they were with the same getup as Mission Impossible 2, then you may also appreciate Ben Stiller doing a Die Hard parody as well, like a Die Hard trailer parody for Die Hard 12. So if that is ever something that you wish to look up, I highly encourage it. Otherwise, I will pass it back over to you guys if there's any additional thoughts or questions or just cool things that you saw in the film you want to talk about.
I think we've covered everything for me personally, but
I'm just so glad I finally saw this. So thank you for picking it, Will.
You are welcome. Merry Christmas. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
The best gift of all, the experience of watching Die Hard.
That's right. Hey, look, as Hans said, it's Christmas, Theo. It's the time of miracles. So,
little game. Yeah.
All
right. So
I'm sorry.
No, dude, it's all right. It's the nature of podcasting. What I've done for you all is I have reached out across the internet and searched long and hard, and by that I mean like I typed it into Google to discover what the highest grossing Christmas films of all time are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 films, and you're going to say which one you think is the higher grossing of the 2, and I'll reveal their position on the list to help you kind of do some process of elimination and how much money they made at the box office. These are not adjusted for inflation that I could tell. So here we go. Your first pairing, is going to be How the Grinch Stole Christmas, so the Jim Carrey film.
Ugh.
And we are going to do The Santa Claus, the Tim Allen film.
So we say which one we thought was a higher grossing film?
Correct.
I'm going to go with The Grinch.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with The Santa Claus.
May takes the point. It is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Number 3 on the list of top 10 grossing Christmas films with $451 million in profit. So nice job, May.
And also Jim Carrey. Wow. Yeah, he must have been the pull for that, huh?
I think that was kind of at his peak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also like the first like live action adaptation or like attempts as the cartoon. So people were hungry for a Grinch. So nice job.
And then we got The Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers.
Oh God. I forgot about that.
Thanks, Jim Carrey.
We also got Horton Hears a Who, which was pretty decent. So
okay.
A little column A, a little column B. All right. Your next pairing is going to be a pair of sequels, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, versus Batman Returns.
Oh, damn.
That's a Christmas movie?
It is. You never seen it?
No.
Oh, it's fabulous. Oh, it's absolutely
watch
fabulous.
it. Yeah.
Is that going to be your pick now, Chris?
No, I briefly considered it, but nah, like, got something special planned for that. But
I'm going to say Home Alone 2.
I have to agree. I think Kevin McAllister definitely drew a lot of fans back.
You are both correct. It is indeed Home Alone 2,
Nice.
with $392 million in profit. Batman Returns was $367 million, and they are numbers 6 and 7 on the list, respectively. The Santa Claus was number 8. So we've eliminated 3 with How the Grinch Stole Christmas, 6 with Home Alone 2, 7 with Batman Returns, and 8 with the Santa Claus. So again, just trying to help you guys get some strategy going here. Your next pair of films is going to be the original Gremlins versus The Polar Express.
Gremlins.
I want to say Gremlins because it's adorable, but I feel like Polar Express probably. I feel Tom Hanks. I'm feeling Tom Hanks vibes. Energy is what drew this, so I'm gonna have to go with that.
Point once again goes to May.
Hey,
Gremlins
noise
is the number 4 highest grossing Christmas film of all time at $426 million. Polar Express is number 10 at $277 million. I think presented with the... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, the Polar Express is very uncanny to me, and I hate it. And I've heard from some other people that feel similarly, so that's the only reason I didn't pick it.
Hey, whatever the reason, you pick correct. I would have probably chosen the same as Will, thinking like, oh, Tom Hanks, it's a children's book, but nope.
It's
number
creepy.
10. Still, I haven't seen it in a long time. I remember liking it back in the day, but yeah, the Uncanny Valley thing is definitely real with those like motion capture CGI movies. Okay, your penultimate pairing is the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe versus The Grinch. So not the Jim Carrey The Grinch, but the most recent one. Forget who played the Grinch. I probably should have had that information, but the one that was like kind of, I think, CG animated.
I'm gonna go with Narnia on this one.
You're talking Benedict Cumberbatch as the Grinch?
Yeah, there you go. That's who it was. I was like, I knew it's somebody famous.
Does that change your answer, Meg?
No.
Since you've been nailing these, I'm gonna have to just go with the same one. I also think that Narnia had it. I know, but I think that Narnia had like, I'm gonna say C.S. Lewis probably had a little bit more pull as opposed to like a remaking of a classic. like if you had said the original Grinch cartoon, then I would have been like hands down, that's it. But if this is C.S. Lewis, and that I think that had more pull. I also think, did that come after Lord of the Rings came out? So there was also like the fantasy aspect. I can't remember which one came first, but I'm going with Narnia. I'm going into
You are both correct. It is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Number 5 on the list with $423 million. The Grinch, 280 million. So number 9 on the top 10 spot. And that brings us to our final pairing. So far, Mae, perfect. With 4 points, Will with 2. So it is decided already, but Will, you could still make a good effort here. And Mae, I kind of want to see you run the table with this. So
I'd be down to do sudden death.
Well, Will mathematically cannot win, but
I know, but I'm willing to do a sudden death.
Oh, you're willing to put it on the line, like schoolyard rules. Like, now this is the world champion. Doesn't matter what came before this. This is the for all the marbles. I like it. All right, so if you
need that adrenaline, Chris.
I love it. I love the guts. So if you've been keeping track, that means that the top 2 movies are the only ones that are left, and I did this on purpose. I want you to tell me, is the highest grossing Christmas film of all time Home Alone or Iron Man 3, which is a Christmas movie? It's a Shane Black directed.
Home Alone.
Yeah, hands down, man. If it's not
Decisive.
Home Alone, I'm gonna throw the table over.
All right, locked in?
Yes.
You're both correct. It is Home Alone.
Nice.
With $635 million over the $458 million Iron Man 3 pulled in. I thought that was gutsy.
It's not close.
Not a Marvel
it's
movie.
Not close.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a couple $100 million in a way, but it is Marvel though, and those things do bring in dump trucks full of money. So I think I would have gotten that wrong, probably. Like, I would have gotten in my own head. And especially impressive, like, given that the list was not adjusted for inflation, like Home Alone whipped Iron Man 3's ass. Like, that's really pretty spectacular. So
Macaulay Culkin.
That's right.
And just a great movie. Well, nice job, both of you. Well played. And Mae, you did indeed run the table. So perfect game, which I don't think any of us have had so far. So super well done there.
Yeah,
GG's.
Congratulations.
And that brings us to the end of the podcast and the reveal of my film for the Christmas selection. I know I said I was going to do away with the chaos, and this was going to be a straightforward nomination, but I could not pick between the 2 films. So I have a quarter on the game board here, and I am going to flip it to decide. Heads will be Christmas Vacation. Tails will be It's a Wonderful Life. 2 very different movies. So are you ready?
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right. Oops, I'm hitting the flip button, which just turns it over. Let me hit roll instead. It is heads. So we will be watching Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. So
Woo!
Your regret at not having seen it last episode is going to be remedied very soon. So
amazing.
I'm excited for this. Will, you've seen this before, you said, but not in a while.
It's been ages, like high school probably. So I'm looking forward to going back and watching it again and seeing if my opinion of it has changed.
I will say it is very stupid. It is also very 80s. So all the stuff that goes with that. It is also written by John Hughes. So you're going to see a lot of that, like Hughes influence style, embedded in there. So Chicago, Illinois, and all the other stuff. But yes, just don't go in expecting high art. That's my only ask of you. Like, it is a very dumb movie.
What about
I love
high art?
Now, if you want to have some, enhancements before, highly recommend that. Can't make it any worse, and probably would make it a lot better. But that is up to you, viewer, listener, on what you want to do. It does go great with a glass of eggnog and a Wally Moose mug, which I will be doing. Wally Moose is a character in this universe, and there are little eggnog glasses in the movie, which I was gifted as a present last year. So I will post a photo of that for the next episode, me enjoying the film with the Wally Moose mug. But till next week, we appreciate you listening, tuning in. I just saw we are officially up to 1,600 views / listens, which is awesome. If you support the podcast, listen to the podcast, watch the podcast, however you get it, we appreciate that. It's been a great first year for us. I'd love to get to 2,000, so if you want to share it with a friend here to help push us before the new year, it would be much appreciated. But till next week, we love you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower to meet with Holly. He came to get her back and to be her man, but Hans and his buddies fucked up the plan, and that's about when everything went sour at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were